how do you feel coming into Grandma's?
Yeah, like last year I did Boston just 2 months ago, and then did the 25K about a month ago. Training was really similar to last year, so I think I'm in really similar fitness, if not maybe a little bit more fit.
3 times is the charm, I think they often say. Is there a benefit of, like, for the whole milieu that's Grandma's, is there a benefit to being here 3 times?
Yeah, I think there's little quirks about the course that are important to know. I think just walking around Duluth, I've got such a great vibe. People walking up to me just knowing like who I am, and it makes it seem so surreal, and puts a lot of really builds me up and gets me really excited for tomorrow.
It's awesome. All right, well, we can open it up to questions. We have a lot of distinguished journalists here. So John Gilbert, go ahead.
Really? I wonder if you have to spend part of your training practicing smiling all the time you're on.
You know, that comes naturally, thankfully.
Because I've never seen a runner that enjoyed herself or himself as much as you do.
Yeah, it kind of happens naturally, especially to start, but as the race goes on and it gets more difficult, I do kind of force it just to try to, make myself feel a little happier, gets me a little bit more hyped up, and it gets the crowd hyped up, so.
You don't have any inspirational jokes you keep in mind? Or...
No jokes, no.
Well, Dakota, you beat me to it. I was going to ask you about the June Curve now. And, looking back, you kind of probably didn't know where you were going to be after 2014, 15, 16, winning that trail marathon. Looking back now, what does that mean to you? Does it bring back a lot of good memories, or does it make you wonder about time? How does that?
Yeah, it's like a good foreshadowing to my career. Who knew when I was doing that trail marathon that I would be doing this for a living? And certainly even when I graduated college, I had no idea I'd be in this position. So yeah, I think about that as like my first stepping stones. It's where I fell in love with the marathon and fell in love with the kind of pain that you can only feel at mile 25 in a marathon.
And any of you, all of you, what was your last tune-up race and how did it go?
I ran the 25K champs a month ago. I took 4th amongst a really strong field and set a PR, so it was
Why don't you all both answer that?
I did not run a tune-up race, so I'm just extended my marathon season. I ran one in April. Unfortunately, it did not go well. I had a nerve issue in my leg. And so afterwards, I ended up recovering really well and then decided, hey, let's go after the marathon here. Original plan was to run the half, and I felt like I didn't have the best opportunity to showcase my fitness in April, so being able to get to the start line healthy and strong tomorrow is a blessing, and I'm super excited.
Jessica, could you tell us what marathon that was?
That was the Enschede Marathon in the Netherlands.
That's what do-overs are for.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I haven't raced since the I-9, so last race was a marathon and next race is a marathon too.
Can we jump into a question about that? Yeah, is that okay? Yeah. Like a lot of people will do a half, and for you, you've had a distinct career for sure. Was that a cutting question for you and your coach, who you're close with? Were you talking like, I don't know, should we find a half and fly somewhere? What was your thought process?
So the first tricky thing for me is I work every other weekend. I'm a physician assistant. So if I'm working a weekend, it has to be a really big race like this or Twin Cities or something I've been thinking about for a long time to get the weekend off. So that cuts a lot of them, like for example, Cherry Blossom was the weekend I worked. So logistics are a little tricky, and then also I felt like I just had this really consistent build. So it was either run a race without a taper or continue to just train. So I felt pretty comfortable in the just continuing to train field.
Dakota, one more thing I wanted to ask you, and then if you have any more questions for Dakota, we'll do that, and then we'll move on. But so you know the grandma scene pretty well here now. You're pretty accustomed to it. I presume you were downstairs at the luncheon. Didn't see, but maybe you weren't. Maybe you just got in for the press conference. But a special vibe here that really cannot be duplicated, and it's not synthetic. But what's your impression about Grandma's?
It's a really great question. There's nothing I dislike about Grandma's. Everything is amazing, from the beautiful start that you get up on the North Shore to the serene middle miles of the marathon to the loud finish once you get into Duluth. And then I think what makes, in my opinion, Grandma's different than any other race I've run is that when you finish, and you finish here in Canal Park, and you go home, you go to your hotel and you shower, and you come back out for dinner or lunch and maybe drinks, whatever you do. Everybody is here to celebrate you. You don't get that at New York. When you finish the New York Marathon, you're just another person walking around. But down here in Canal Park, you're being celebrated by everybody. Anybody who's down here either ran the marathon, the half marathon, the 5K, or they're supporting people who did. So it's really a citywide party after. I think that's the best part about Grandma's.
Good, thank you, thank you. Karen?
Dakota, what was your recovery from Boston like?
I had a week completely off, and then I jumped basically right back into marathon training. It's not super easy on the body, and one of these times I'm going to give up the Boston Grandma's double, but not this year.
Was that a plan? Did you situate these two marathons as kind of like one working for the other?
Yeah, this has been the plan the last couple of years. I just can't give up coming here to win at Grandma's, and then Boston's just been one where I keep missing when I swing really big for the fences, and I keep wanting to go there and have a good race, and unfortunately haven't had it yet.
Speaking of swinging for the fences, you came awfully close to breaking the record here last year. But what are your thoughts about tomorrow? The weather, your fitness, are you going to try to set pace at night?
Yeah, it looks like a good weather day, so I would love to have that event record to get from Helen Taylor, even though I love her. But I want to have it. I want to put my name in this record book as many times as possible.
Do you think you'll run another marathon for the trials?
I do think I will. I keep telling everybody I'm going to take a break at some point, but I just love the marathon, and it's hard to imagine going so long without running another marathon.
How happy are you to be up here out of the smoke?
Yeah, yesterday in Minneapolis was pretty bad. I'm happy to be where the air is clear. You can definitely feel a difference.
Mike Pinocchi, you had a question?
Yeah, I may have missed this, but congratulations on your PR of 25K. What was your time?
I don't know.
That's wonderful.
128 something. It's just a weird distance. Yeah.
Well, congratulations on
Yeah.
your PR.
Thank you.
And, yeah.
Dakota, you were on course record pace last year, 24 miles. Have you figured out how to run the last two?
I just got to figure out how to run the last mile. You run straight for so long, and then you get into Canal Park and take so many turns. I think, just really being prepared and maybe being a little bit more ahead of schedule coming into Canal Park is important.
What family member is going to be waiting for you this time?
You know, it's a surprise to me every year, so whoever they nominate, I guess.
Please, again, if you had a question.
Do you want to talk to us about Boston? I know you've said before last year you felt like you just didn't get to run the race you wanted. This past year, unbelievable depth. And hearing you talk about the depth before the marathon, I thought you were so tactful. Just like, look, it's a big field. I'm there to win it. I'm gonna do my best. What's your reflection post Boston this year?
Yeah, Boston was tough for me. Just we got kind of rained on in the middle, and I just never could warm up after, and had signs of hypothermia after. So it's one of those things I was really disappointed, but you can only ask so much of your body. And I was pretty sad for an hour or two, but then I realized there's only I can't do anything about being cold. My body just couldn't warm up.
Was there a sense you ran 2:33, I think? Like before, I don't know, 5 years ago, 2:33 is people are like,
yeah.
You ran what?
5 years ago, yeah, 2:33 would have been pretty impressive, but now we're in a world where unless you're sub 2:26, it's really, you're kind of any other runner. It's gotten so much more competitive over these last few years, and I'm just trying to keep up.
Question for all three of you. How do you think the new super shoes are affecting your races?
I mean, I think they're great. I think we probably all feel pretty good. It seems as if the more you can wear them, the better you feel as well with recovery and things like that. So that's kind of my take on.
Yeah, I feel like you're not beat up as much and you're able to recover and get after either whether it's training or the next race a lot quicker. And yeah, it's contributing to the fast times, but I mean, everyone's wearing them. Except me.
When the gun goes off, it's still about the person who bought the shoes, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Do you want one of you speak to the fact for the uninitiated a little bit, unaware of their new shoes, but can you succinctly put what makes these new shoes better?
I am not a shoe nerd, so I'm not there. I just know you recover better, yeah, you can race more often, I don't know.
The foams are better.
Yeah.
The foam? Is that what you said?
Yeah, the foam.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So I think if you're thinking from like a non-scientific, it's just if someone's asking you what does it feel like. A lot of people still don't know this analogy, but it welcomes more in. So I was previously a gymnast, and I would describe it as if it feels like as if you're more on a spring floor. So not like a trampoline, but certainly get a lot of more give, and you can kind of work with the shoe. And so I think if you give it some patience too, you get an even better result.
All right, we'll move on, but you can pick up a question if you like. Gabriella, let's go to you. I'm a person that loves the depth and breadth of sport, and I appreciate all sports. Here you come in rather late to running. You were a gymnast. Did you pick up running because you didn't go as far as you wanted in gymnastics? Your record appeared to be pretty good as a gymnast. So how and why the transition?
Yeah, so with gymnastics, most people, college is the end of their career. You're getting a little now where you see some of the professional athletes going into their 20s, which I think is fantastic. Historically, if you look back to '96, they actually Dominique Mucciano was 14 at the peak of her career. So it's an evolving sport with age as well, as they have their own techniques on helping people recover and more safe sport. But really gymnastics ends at 22 years old for anyone who does college gymnastics. So just as someone who has always been competitive with myself, who's always found a huge outlet in activity, it took me probably between 5 and 6 years after college to really find I played around with other sports. I did CrossFit, I did, joined a soccer league, but I was running a lot for fitness, just kind of throughout the background of that. And then I ran the Twin Cities 10 while I was in PA school. It's kind of an outlet for the rigor of the academic side of things, and sort of started to fall in love with running then.
Did you find there was some physiological carryover that helped?
In a way, yes. I mean, it's an anaerobic sport to a completely aerobic sport, so physically, not necessarily a ton of crossover, aside from the fact that a strong, robust athlete is going to find it easier to transition to a sport that's new. But I think a lot of the mental barriers and the mental side of things is going to be similar regardless of like any sport that you go through.
Okay, all right. Can I open it up for questions? Chad?
If you could talk about the two sports, what are some of the similarities that make you a good gymnast and a good marathoner?
I think determination, problem solving, grit, all of those are things that I learned in gymnastics and certainly carry over in running.
Did you run Cal International before this last year?
No, that was my first time.
What did you think of it?
I thought it was a great course. They say, it's a fast course, but it's not an easy course, and I would certainly agree with that.
Everybody I've talked to loves the first half, and then after that it's like, when are we going to end?
Yeah, I think that you have this really long, probably 3-ish, 4 miles maybe, where you're running down one street and you just think, are we ever going to get there? And then you turn the corner and it's maybe 50 meters, 100 meters, and there's the finish.
But you enjoyed it?
Yeah.
Have you all three qualified for the Olympic trials? And what was that? What is that qualifying time?
237.
237. And you've got like, 2 years previous before that to qualify? And then is there an A and E standard still?
No, it's just one standard.
So if you make that standard, do all the gals get their, airfare and all that kind of stuff?
We We don't know.
Oh.
Yes.
They don't even have a course yet.
And it's Orlando, is that right? It's Orlando.
It could be nice or not, but just like fluid. How has been getting into long distance running? I mean, I've seen your progression, it's incredible. It's very different mindset, right? To be out on the roads for hours and hours versus, I mean, I'm sure you spend hours and hours in the gym as a gymnast, but like we were saying, it's more explosive. How has that shift been for you mentally?
You know, it's something you think about, but you don't think about. So it wasn't this transition from like night and day. It was something where I started out doing a lot of 4-mile runs, and then those 4-mile runs became 6 miles, and a long run was 10 miles, and really a slow progression, I'd say, in my 20s and then really over the past 5 years. So I think it's been a really gradual process. It looks a little bit faster, I think, on paper since my first marathon was here 2 years ago, but I think there's kind of another 3 or 4 years where I've just slowly been transitioning over.
Your career is so short and young.
Not young.
But you're running
career.
Yeah. Do you see yourself doing this for another Olympic cycle? I mean, like your career just started.
Yeah, I think it's kind of weird because I am 35, so I'm certainly not a spring chicken in the world of running. But I also have a lot of freshness on my legs, I think.
Yeah.
And I think gymnastics has helped with overall strength. It's a sport that requires a lot of physical strength, and so that might be something that really has helped me and been really protective from an injury standpoint.
Yes.
Gabriella, earlier in one of your responses, you mentioned the word grit. How would you personally describe that word, and how are you incorporating it in your preparation for running?
Yeah, so I think there's lots of different types of grit, different places you find grit. One of the places I really found grit is with my teammate, Kim Horner. I think she's someone who can put herself into a situation where she feels uncomfortable and she's comfortable being uncomfortable. So as we've been training more and more together, I think that's something that I've been really pulling from her. And then also just when you get into those uncomfortable situations, start to think about things that motivate you, things that bring you joy, why you're doing this. Draw from the other people on the course, draw from the people who are supporting on the course as well. And so I think all of those are places where you can find grit and hold on tight.
Thank you.
Yes.
You mentioned your team, a lot of this one out there. What does it mean for you to be a part of Mill City running?
Yeah, I think that was a really big change in my training because with gymnastics, it's an individual sport, but in college, the focus is on the team. If you've ever been to or seen a Division I gymnastics meet, it's pretty intense, it's pretty fun. So I think Mill City takes the approach of being a team, and it's a big team, it's a giant tent. There's over 800 of us, and the motto is the front supports the back and the back supports the front. And I think the store owners, Jeff and Becca, preach that every day. I think every single person I've been on a run with is that, and something where you can go there several times a week, and that is your community and that is your spot, or it's something where you have someone who comes in and does a run every once in a while, meets people, doing it socially. It's something where it's kind of everyone is welcome as they are, and that's been massively impactful for me.
I was going to kind of piggyback off that because like when Kara and I were racing, there weren't nearly as many women that were kicking butt, and now across, especially our country in the U.S., we are really starting to see the shift. Like, and it's fun too, not to say that you're from a different state, but in Minnesota in general, we see this little shift happening. What is that like for you ladies, all three of you ladies, to be in this new shift? And like, I have my daughter and her teammate here. I mean, it's really a cool time to be a woman in this sport.
Yeah, I think it is really fun to watch, and it's fun to be a part of, knowing that we're contributing to it. I think sometimes it can be intimidating to see how much faster women are getting, but then you have to remind yourself that you're part of the reason it's getting faster.
I think it's motivating, and really, I feel like everyone's really uplifting each other, and it's just really driving our sport forward, I think.
Kevin?
I'm just thinking at the start of the week, when you saw the weather and the smoke in the sky, were you concerned then, and are you now not concerned, or is there any reason for you just to have that still thinking about tomorrow morning? Yeah, all three of you.
I'm somebody who doesn't look at the weather too often, just because it would have been too much of a roller coaster for me of emotions. So I've checked it a couple of times since I've been up here. I feel good about it.
Same.
Yeah, I mean, the weather's gonna be the weather regardless, and there's nothing you can do about it. The smoke makes me a little nervous, but outside of that, it looks like it's gonna be just fine, so.
Carol, did you have a question?
All three of you have qualified for the trials. What's your opinion about Orlando having the trials? All the uncertainty still about it.
It's pretty frustrating not having a course, not having any sort of information about it. It's frustrating hearing it might be held at noon in Orlando in February.
TV.
Yeah, for TV time. And I get it, it's a business, but as the athletes, I think we need to have, stronger voices and have our voices heard.
Yeah, I mean, we are Minnesotans, so going from -20 to +80 for a marathon is a little bit intimidating, and then start thinking, okay, where can I heat train?
Yeah.
If that's the course we got and that's what we have, I think I totally agree with Dakota that there are those frustrations, and then, okay, what next?
I just wish that they had the athlete's best interests in mind.
So you guys are echoing everything I feel, but it's very interesting to hear you say that. I guess I'm just saying I appreciate you guys being able to say that, because you guys should know what the course looks like. You should know exactly what time the gun's going to start. You should be able to mimic that in training, and you can't. And it's June, and I feel like I'm making you more panic, but it's just interesting hearing you say that, because
it's a question in there somewhere,
it's
right?
very there's not really a question. I just appreciate you guys being honest.
I think,
Is this late, Carol, to get this information?
This is ridiculously
ridiculous.
unheard of.
Interesting.
I just want to say, Kara, not to make this a back and forth between us, but that I think we can probably all agree that you being such a great voice for our sport has been something that makes everybody else more comfortable speaking up. You've been a great person to look up to. I appreciate that.
And Kara, your and Des back and forth with all of the controversy has been really good for the sport, I think.
Yeah. Well, no one's
You're pointing out the athletes aren't put first.
Right. Well, we have a great meet tomorrow. You know the course. It's going to be awesome.
That's why Grandma's is so great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, kind of making off this conversation, there are so many amazing women that went through and blazed the trail forward. Some might be in the room today, but there's some great runners here in the media. I don't know exactly, but somewhere here. But are there women that you've looked up to? Boston celebrated 50 years of women running officially the Boston Marathon. You're kicking butt today. Are there women that you look up to or who have come to you to say, look, I did this when people were still wearing boy shorts or something? Like, are there women who have been doing that for you or have been mentoring you?
Maybe each one of you address that.
If not, that's fine. But
I think my entire career I've looked up to my fellow Minnesotan Kara, and Des have been two of my, people I idolize.
I think for me, seeing the women continue to get older in the field and get faster has been incredibly motivating for me, as I am a little bit older in the sport, and just thinking like, well, there are people who have children and there are people who are older than me, and look at what they're doing. So I think that huge pack of women.
Jessica, go ahead, I'm sorry, and then I want to bring you into the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to say, like, all the women, really? I mean, everybody has an individual story, everybody has a different timeline, and it's incredibly inspiring to see what people are doing at all different ages, younger, older, and just the whole mix, I think, is incredibly inspiring. And meeting, your competitors on a regular basis. I mean, a lot of times we know each other, but we haven't met everyone, and just following each other's stories, it's all just incredibly motivating. So
I think piggybacking off of that, I think the number of women who, when the Olympic trial standard changed from 245 to 237, have just said, like, let's still go for it. That elite, sub-elite category has been a group that I've gotten to know pretty well, and it's just been a pack of women who are, 20s, 30s, even 40s, children, single, married, and it's been nothing but support that I've had, and so I think that has been a really cool experience for me.
That's awesome. Jessica, your first time here, you won in Twin Cities last year, and you were an All-American at UW Parkside, right? Where did you grow up?
Outside of Chicago.
Mm-hmm. And what was your matriculation from there to where you are now?
Well, my career, well, I started off as a swimmer in high school, and I ran only to like fill the gaps in the season, and never really thought running was going to be an option in college until like my high school coach pushed me into it. And speed forward, and ended up at Parkside, great D2 school, loved it. And then it was one of those things where after college, there was a group of women, alumni that are like, oh, we're gonna go after the Olympic standard and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's a thing, you know, like just being so oblivious to the sport sometimes. And just kind of ran with a group up there, and it was super inspiring, and just kept going from there. Ended up in Colorado 5 years ago, and
Boulder,
Colorado Springs.
Okay.
And have been just enjoying every day of it and the journey that I've been on.
Where do you hope the journey takes you? Olympics.
I think that's everyone's dream, so.
Is it? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you run cross country at Parkside?
I did, yes.
Do you agree or disagree? Best course in the country?
I am biased. I absolutely think it's the best cross country course, and one of the few true actual cross country courses that aren't, you know, a golf course or a park or whatever. But I have to say, I really, really thoroughly enjoyed running pre-act in college.
Let's open up questions. Chad, you can have the first go.
Your bio says you're coaching right now at UW. Is that correct?
No, I was.
Oh, you were, okay.
So when I first graduated, I was the assistant coach there. Yeah.
So what would you take from your career in a coaching situation right now? What are the things that you've learned that have helped you develop into a winner of a major marathon last year?
Enjoy the journey. I put way too much pressure on my race in Chicago and my debut, and everything went wrong. Everything that could possibly. And my coach told me, hey, we should do Twin Cities. And at first I was a little hesitant because I didn't know much about it. And I went in with a totally different mindset, like, hey, I need to enjoy this again, because after Chicago, I was in a little bit of a rut. Post-COVID and everything, and I had a couple of transitions in life, and I'm like, okay, I need to do this for the right reasons. I need to enjoy it again. I need to be in the right environment. So we came, and the goal was just to have fun at Twin Cities, and kind of came away with wins. So I would absolutely tell any athlete that, you know, if you're not enjoying it, you need to, you know, step back a second and reassess, like, what do you want out of this? Like,
How has been adjusting to altitude? And I mean, you've been there for a while, but living up in Colorado Springs is high. It's different than Boulder. And how has that been? And where do you do your long runs?
Honestly, the altitude, I adjusted really well, and I've never really had an issue. So living, training, whole 9 yards there is going great. Long runs, anywhere up and down the Santa Fe Trail, honestly, but probably my favorite would be 11 mile, out a bit. That's probably my favorite spot, but yeah.
Santa Fe is a little similar to the marathon, the course here, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you got a little bit of rolling the whole time, and I mean, you can run a whole 26-mile stretch.
Oh, I've done it.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's a great place for training. I'm biased though.
Ever do the air academy? Limited traffic.
Yeah, it's higher there and hillier for my taste. And bike the whole trail around there, but I haven't ran it.
Are you able to utilize the Olympic training facility there?
No, actually.
It's a great facility. You probably don't know that, but.
Yeah, I would love to if I was allowed to, but.
you want to tell us a little bit about reflecting on Twin Cities now? You were definitely one of the elite runners coming into that. Maybe not everybody knew you, and
maybe some of us said your last name wrong a couple times.
I didn't catch that.
You're trying to
catch that. No. I'm just saying, for you, you know, not everybody knew you. Your Chicago race, like you said, didn't go like you wanted to. You come to Twin Cities, you kick butt, you fly down that hill, take the win. Reflecting back now, does it feel like? How are you feeling about it?
I feel really good looking back on it, you know, and I think I'm just trying to harness that same energy that I had going into Twin Cities for tomorrow, and you know, I want to call it a little bit of that Minnesota magic. But I don't know, the whole thing went really well, and it just reminds me, like, just have fun.
How do you pronounce your name so that no one says it wrong tomorrow?
Watychowicz.
Watychowicz.
Who was it? Was it your dad or your coach?
My coach and my boyfriend
awesome.
were like screaming.
We were on live, so they could hear us, and they were like,
Watychowicz!
I'm so thankful. But you know, can you tell us a little bit about those final miles? How did you keep your composure and your patience? Because we weren't announcing your name until the final miles.
Yeah, so the whole goal was to go out and run my own race and don't get carried away with the lead pack in the beginning miles, and I guess that goes back to running my own race and having a good experience, because Chicago was so horrid. I never thought I was going to run another marathon, so I stayed within the plan and within a couple seconds that I was supposed to be, and I saw my coach at, I don't know, I think mile like 19, and he's like, they're starting to fall apart, like you're looking good and strong, and that, I think mile 21 is when I started to get the backpack of that group, and I just started to pick them off, and once I got to, what was it, mile 23, and started to pass Kim Conley, I was like, oh man, the lead vehicle's right there. Like, kind of didn't expect it, and once you see that, I mean, that gives you like that whole second win, second energy that you're like, okay, let's get after this, and just really kick it in the last part of that race.
Other questions?
Yeah. Might snake, Dakota, just one more time, recap, you know, how it feels to be back here, potential three-peat, and also being from Minnesota here at Grandma's Marathon.
Yeah, this is my favorite marathon. I'm never going to be tired of saying that. Feels like coming home. There's something about Grandma's that I can't replicate anywhere else. I have fun, I'm relaxed. Like I said, it feels like running in my hometown, even though I'm not a hometown person.
What is it about the course that suits you so well?
I think it's like, I can't get carried away by the crowd at Grandma's, because that first half you do have crowd support, but it's a lot of the lake views that you get. It keeps me kind of just composed and running a smart race. And then when I need it, when I need the crowd, they're there in Lester Park, they're there in Duluth and Canal Park.
Do you think that was part of your problem at Boston? Because there's crowds everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Every year I have to like try to put on my horse blinders and not pay attention to this, but how can you not? It's Boston.
Yeah. Also, the race was so aggressive up front this year. It was hard to know, do I go with that, do I not go with that, right? Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, I was kind of curious for all of you, really, Gabby, kind of thinking about your trajectory too. Like, does your family know what's going on? Like your parents and stuff? You move so fast into that USATF, all of a sudden you're on the podium. Is your family like, oh, so are you running a little bit today? Or
They get it. My husband is my coach, so my significant other certainly gets it. And then gymnastics is dedication from age 3. Couldn't do other sports. Like 5th grade, I ran track, and I had to pick because I lost a skill. So I picked gymnastics. So they have understood my intensity for sport from day one. You know, training 20 hours a week from 5th grade on. So they get it.
Good question. All right, shall we let these wonderful women go here and get ready? Mike Pinochi has one more.
Yeah,
Okay.
earlier Earlier
And
in
that
time,
will wrap it up, and we'll go to the men.
This is for Dakota. Earlier, someone had mentioned you're smiling all the time, and I was reviewing the digital guide, but I got the picture here that maybe he was talking about, where you're smiling. Do you know what mile mark that was last year?
I do. That was like mile 1.
That's what I thought too.
I have a story. On the bus up to 2 Harbors, one of my male teammates said, Dakota, I bet you go out faster than a 5:25. And I said, no way. There's no chance I'm going out faster than that. And at like 0.75, I looked down and I was like, I'm going faster. And we had bet a drink on it later that night. And I was going like 5:20 Ks. So I said to the 2 women next to me, I said, hey, I have to slow down a little bit. I don't want to lose this bet. We were giggling about it.
Awesome. So I'm going to encourage the reporters and photographers tomorrow, maybe around Lemon Drop, to get a picture of you smiling. We'd love to see that.
I bet you can find one.
Okay.
Thank you for your great questions. Let's give them a nice round of applause. With our great wishes that you have the race of your dreams tomorrow. Thank you for being with us. We'll take a short break. We have the men coming up as we continue. Thank you.